good friend Joe Fortunato on board with us this morning. He joined us Fridays at this time as we look at some of the films. And, of course, Joe, film study professor extraordinaire, Mr. Fortunato. Joe, take it from there. What do you have for us today?
Good morning, Ray. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, got a good one today. And this is one of the more controversial films of all time. And if I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen it, but those who have seen it, if you're like me, you never forgot it. That is A Clockwork Orange, which premiered late in 1971, released wider in 1972, directed by the great Stanley Kubrick, based on the novel by Anthony Burgess. The screenplay was written by Stanley Kubrick. This is his first solo screenplay. It stars the great Malcolm McDowell, Patrick McGee, and David Prowse, who would become Darth Vader a couple years later. Now, if you haven't seen the film's about Alex, who is an ultra-violent gang member in futuristic Britain, and he gets arrested and convicted of murder. While in prison, he goes through an experimental program where convicts are programmed to detest violence. And as he goes through the program, we kind of learn that that solution might be actually worse than the problem. And it deals with free will and government control, violence, and it's a very substantial film. It was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Writing, and Best Editing. It was one of the highest grossing films of the year that year, doing a modest budget, doing very well on that. It was the first science fiction film, if we call it science fiction, and I think that's a fair classification. It was the first science fiction film to be Oscar nominated for Best Picture, which seems kind of late in the game, but that's one of those fun facts. It's ranked very high on a lot of different lists. It was ranked number 2 on Entertainment Weekly's all-time most controversial movies. So you can see its controversy there. And it was rated number 70 as the greatest movie of all time on the AFI 100 list. So it's a well-regarded movie. It's a movie that sticks with you. It was banned. The film was banned, sort of, and I'll clarify what that means in a moment. Kubrick himself was threatened, and the film became one of the most controversial ever made. Kubrick himself calls the film satire. But it was very violent, and this is one of only 2 movies that were rated X on its original release to be nominated for Best Picture. The other is Midnight Cowboy, which I believe we've talked about before. And the film was originally rated X until Stanley Kubrick voluntarily made some cuts, and it's been rated R ever since. According to author Anthony Burgess, the title of the book and then the movie came from East London slang, but no independent reference is ever known, and some thought that Burgess just made up the phrase, because a lot of people ask, well, what does the Clockwork Orange mean? And kind of really don't know.
Clockwork Orange is today. And you go back, right, Joe, to the early 70s. You're coming out of the psychedelic 60s. Even though this was very controversial, you can see, while, as you mentioned there, it was accepted by a large part of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anthony Burgess initially distrusted the idea of Kubrick as a director, but was very happy with the way the film turned out. Probably the most famous image from the film, and I'm going to guess that most people have seen this image, even if they've not seen the movie, is with Malcolm McDowell's character strapped in with the metal prongs holding his eyeballs open as he's forced to watch violent images. And it's a very compelling image and one that sticks with us. Anyway, Malcolm McDowell's eyes were anesthetized for that torture scene so that he would be able to film for longer periods of time without too much discomfort. However, his corneas did reportedly get scratched while he was doing that scene. The doctor that stands over Alex in that scene is actually a real doctor that was ensuring that Malcolm McDowell's eyes didn't dry up. So kind of a medical reason as well as a performance. Another famous part of the film is when Alex is committing a very violent crime and is singing in the Rain, which is, it's very unusual to have such a happy song. It's very incongruent with the images that we're seeing on screen. So it's a very memorable performance of Singing in the Rain as he's attacking this victim and his wife. And Malcolm McDowell met Gene Kelly at a party several years later, and Gene Kelly turned away and walked away in disgust because he was so upset with what the movie had done, what he had done to his beloved song, Singing in the Rain. I love this fact here. Anthony Burgess, the author, originally sold the movie rights to Mick Jagger for a very low sum. And Jagger intended to make this movie with the Rolling Stones as the Droogs, the gang members. And I would love to see that version. I'm not going to lie. I'd be interested in seeing what that became. Anyway, it didn't work out, and he sold the rights, and it eventually went back to Kubrick. Not a lot of casting. Tim Curry and Jeremy Irons were both tested for the role of Alex, but Kubrick said that if Malcolm McDowell hadn't been available, he probably wouldn't have made the film. And Kubrick's first cut was almost 4 hours. It's hard to imagine that film being 4 hours long, but it was substantially cut. And as I mentioned earlier, that it was banned, but sort of self-banned, because it was never actually banned in the UK. It was released in cinemas, but with an X rating. And it was Stanley Kubrick himself who had the film withdrawn from distribution due to death threats and copycat crimes that were linked to the film. And it wasn't until 2000, the year after Kubrick died, that the film was released properly in Great Britain with what they call an 18 rating. But fans, who wanted to see the film for decades in Britain had to sort of get kind of illegal copies, so much so that when video stores in Britain got so many requests for the film, they would put out a sign that says, "No, we do not have Clockwork Orange." And so it kind of came it became infamous for that as well. And, I talked about the Rolling Stones. Kubrick asked Pink Floyd if he could use one of their albums in the soundtrack, but he wanted to license unlimited amount of songs, and they couldn't come to a deal, so the band turned him down. And Kubrick was afraid that theater owners would edit the movies themselves, so every week the film reels, would be exchanged for a clean, inspected copy to keep the integrity of the film the way Kubrick wanted it to be.
Very interesting. Clockwork Orange. If you haven't seen it or haven't seen it in quite some time, now you know a lot more about it. Joe Fortunato, film study professor, joining us this morning. Well, Joe, we're less than a month away. We're getting together for film school, and I can't wait for March, 21st. We're going to be at Jilly's.
That's correct. Go to joefortunato.net, to my website, for all information on upcoming events, including the one Ray just mentioned, our live presentation of The Godfather. We'll be doing a live screening of The Godfather March 21st at 11 a.m. at Jilly's Music Room in downtown Akron. This is our traditional Fortunato Film School, where I will be doing live commentary on one of the greatest films of all time. And I say that literally. It's on the top of every list, way up there. And we'll be watching The Godfather together. I'll point out some things you may not know about the film, and we'll have a Q&A afterwards to discuss the film. And if you've never seen The Godfather, well, you definitely have to come on down. And if you have seen The Godfather, you're going to want to learn a lot more about it. So come on, get your tickets now, because tickets, I talked to Jill the other day, tickets are selling. So you want to get your tickets now. Go to joefortunato.net or Jilly's music site. You can even go to Facebook and look up the event page and see it there. I'll also mention, while I'm between breaths here, that I'll also be doing my annual History of the Oscars lecture that is at the Green Branch Library. The Oscars are coming up in just a couple of weeks, March 14th. That's a Saturday at 11 a.m. I'll be doing that lecture for free at the Green Branch Library. And again, that information, as well as the links for Godfather tickets, are all on my website, joefortunato.net.
And again, even if you've seen The Godfather, and it's in my top 5 movies of all time, I can't wait to see the movie through Joe's eyes. I mean, he paint with his film schools, and many of you folks listening have been there for our film schools at Jilly's. If you haven't, you've got to take it in with us on the 21st and get your tickets. It's a lot of fun, and his behind the scene knowledge and stories and insight are unbelievable. And I can't wait for The Godfather on the 21st. This is just going to be a really good day for Ray, for sure. So get your tickets now. Joe, as always, my friend, thank you for the great film school each and every Friday. We appreciate the time, and we'll do it again next week.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you then.
You got it, my friend. There you go. Film study professor, my good friend Joe Fortunato, joining us this morning for Film School here on WAKR.